As the crisp winter wind howled outside, James settled into his new home, an ancient Victorian mansion with creaky floorboards and whispers of history in every corner. The flickering flames of the fireplace cast dancing shadows across the room, creating an eerie ambience that both thrilled and unnerved him. He sank deeper into his armchair, relishing the warmth that enveloped him like a cocoon. But as the night wore on, an unsettling feeling crept over James. His eyes darted around the dimly lit room, searching for the source of his unease. That's when he saw it, a peculiar shadow that didn't quite fit. It lurked near the fireplace, its edges blurred and shifting, unlike the crisp silhouettes cast by the furniture. James blinked hard, convinced his tired eyes were playing tricks on him. Yet when he looked again, the shadow remained, growing darker and more defined with each passing moment. His heart began to race as he realized this was no ordinary trick of the light. The cozy warmth of the room suddenly felt suffocating. James watched in horror as the flames in the fireplace began to sputter and die, plunging the room into an inky darkness. The shadow, no longer bound by the light, seemed to peel itself away from the wall. It stood tall beside the now cold hearth, its form hazy and smoke-like, but unmistakably humanoid. James's breath caught in his throat as he locked eyes with the entity. Where a face should have been, there was only a swirling mass of darkness, save for two glowing red orbs that burned with an otherworldly intensity. Those eyes seemed to peer into his very soul, freezing him in place with their malevolent gaze. Panic finally broke through James's paralysis. He leapt from his chair, nearly tripping over his own feet in his haste to escape. He bolted for the door, fumbling with the handle as cold sweat beaded on his brow. As he wrenched it open and stumbled into the hallway, he risked a glance back, only to find the shadow had vanished. Relief washed over him, but was short-lived. As he turned to continue his flight, he found himself face to face with those burning red eyes once more. The shadow had somehow materialized right in front of him, blocking his path to freedom. James's scream died in his throat as he spun on his heel, racing towards the kitchen. His mind reeled, unable to comprehend how this was possible. He slammed the kitchen door behind him, leaning against it as he gasped for air. But even as he struggled to catch his breath, a chill ran down his spine. He knew with a bone-deep certainty that he wasn't alone. Slowly, reluctantly, James turned his head towards the kitchen fireplace. There, waiting patiently by the cold hearth, stood the shadow. Its form seemed more solid now, the darkness so deep it seemed to absorb what little light remained in the room. Desperation fueled James's next move. He lunged for the back door, praying that he could outrun this nightmare if he could just make it outside. But as his hand closed around the doorknob, he felt an icy presence at his back. The shadow was right behind him, its smoky tendrils reaching out to envelop him. James wrenched the door open and burst into the frigid night air. He ran blindly through the overgrown garden, branches whipping at his face as he plunged deeper into the darkness. His lungs burned with each ragged breath, but he didn't dare slow down. He could feel the shadow's presence, always just a step behind him. After what felt like hours of frantic flight, James found himself back at the front of the house. He stared up at the looming structure, its windows dark and lifeless. With a sinking feeling, he realized he had nowhere left to run. The shadow had herded him right back to where they had started. Resigned to his fate, James trudged back inside. The house was silent save for the pounding of his heart. He made his way to the living room, drawn inexorably back to the fireplace where this nightmare had begun. As he crossed the threshold, the fire roared back to life of its own accord. The sudden burst of light momentarily blinded James, and he threw up a hand to shield his eyes. When he lowered it, he found himself once again face to face with the shadow. This time, there was no escape. The entity had fully separated from the wall, its form now a swirling mass of darkness that towered over James. He watched, paralyzed with fear, as the shadow extended a smoky hand towards him. The last thing James saw was those glowing red eyes, burning with an ancient, insatiable hunger. In the blink of an eye, it was over. The fire crackled merrily in the grate, casting a warm glow over the empty room. Of James, there was no trace. He had vanished as completely as if he had never existed at all, but the shadow remained. It lingered by the fireplace, waiting patiently for its next victim. And as the flames danced and flickered, a whisper seemed to echo through the room, a chilling warning to any who might hear. If you see the shadow in the fireplace ... never stay alone. The tale of James and the shadow spread quickly through the town, passed from person to person in hushed tones. Some dismissed it as nothing more than a ghost story, a cautionary tale to keep children from playing with fire. But others, those who had experienced strange occurrences in their own homes, took the warning to heart. Fireplaces, once symbols of warmth and comfort, became objects of suspicion and fear. People began to avoid sitting alone by the hearth, always ensuring they had company when the flames were lit. Some even went so far as to board up their fireplaces, preferring the chill of winter to the risk of encountering the shadow. As the years passed, the story evolved. Some claimed the shadow could now appear in any flame, from candles to bonfires. Others insisted it could only manifest in the oldest of hearths, those with a long history of burning souls. Paranormal investigators flocked to the town, eager to capture evidence of the shadow on film. But their cameras always seemed to malfunction at the crucial moment, leaving them with nothing but static and their own chilling accounts of what they had witnessed. The house where James had disappeared stood empty for decades, its reputation too fearsome for any new tenants to risk. But as memories faded and skepticism grew, a young couple finally took the plunge and moved in, drawn by the property's low price and historic charm. They laughed off the warnings of their neighbors, confident that modern science could explain away any strange occurrences. They even made a point of gathering around the fireplace each evening, determined to prove the legend nothing more than superstition. For a time, it seemed they were right. The house was peaceful, the fireplace nothing more than a source of warmth on cold nights. But then, one winter evening, the husband found himself alone in the living room while his wife ran a quick errand. As he sat by the fire, idly scrolling through his phone, he noticed something odd out of the corner of his eye. A shadow that didn't quite match the others, lurking just at the edge of his vision. He looked up, his blood running cold as he locked eyes with a pair of glowing red orbs. The fire went out, the shadow moved, and another victim was claimed by the entity that dwelled in the fireplace. When the wife returned home, she found the living room empty, the fire burning low in the grate. Of her husband, there was no sign, just a lingering chill in the air and the faint scent of smoke. The legend of the shadow in the fireplace lives on, a dark whisper passed from generation to generation. It serves as a reminder that some things in this world defy explanation, and that the line between reality and nightmare is thinner than we'd like to believe. So the next time you find yourself alone by a fireplace, watching the flames dance and flicker, remember the tale of James and all those who came after him. And if you see a shadow that doesn't quite fit, one that seems to move of its own accord, don't hesitate, run. For in that moment, your life may depend on heeding the warning. If you see the shadow in the fireplace, never stay alone.